Hi, my name is Van der Puchert and I'm a Senior Customer Success Architect here at MURAL. In this video, we're going to cover and break down all the facilitation features here within the MURAL platform. But before I do that, I want to ask you a question. And in fact, I ask this question in all my facilitation training sessions. Do you consider yourself to be a facilitator? Think about it for a moment. I always find it strange that when I ask this, there's a little bit of awkwardness, and a lot of folks actually shy away from answering this question directly. I always get a lot of maybes, perhaps a few no's. Here at MURAL, we believe that anybody and everybody is a facilitator. You just need to have the opportunity to do so. It's therefore that we also built in a few awesome tools, and we're going to go through these tools as mentioned in this session, that'll help you become a better facilitator. But there's two things I want to share with you before we go into the technical stuff. The one thing is that when you bring a bunch of folks together to collaborate, and we love collaboration here at MURAL, you need to consider the following. Number one, do these folks want to work together? Do they actually want to collaborate? The second element is there a common objective? Is there something that they want to solve, a problem they want to solve? Is there a challenge that they want to solve? Maybe there's some innovation they want to drive. They want to work together and collaborate for a specific reason. Furthermore, also consider your role before you start touching all those facilitation tools. What is the role of the facilitator? Now, there's a lot of thoughts and a lot of opinions, but in my opinion, I believe the role of facilitator is to remove obstacles. Remove obstacles in the way of collaboration. And I believe that all the tools that I'm going to show you here will help you do that. But remember, don't misuse these tools. Always think about the flow of the session. Okay, great. So before we start with the technical stuff and all the features, let me quickly show you this. I've also compiled a MURAL that breaks down all the content that I'm going to demonstrate. So you can come into this MURAL, into this canvas, and then also get access to the small little clips and little videos individually. So you don't have to watch the larger video. I've also given you some guiding content. And then right at the end here of this little canvas, I've also published a few resources, a few links to content that supports all the facilitation superpowers. So by all means, check the caption of this video, maybe the communication that you received, or feel free to reach out to me if you don't have access to this canvas, because I'll be trying to update this canvas regularly. So without further ado, let's jump into the demo canvas and let me start showing you how some of these features work. Facilitator status. How do I spot the facilitator in my session? How do I know if I'm a facilitator? And how do I grant someone else facilitation superpowers? The first one is really easy to do. If you look at the bottom of the canvas here, and you'll notice here, these are all the folks that are currently active in the canvas. There's only 2 in this canvas, but you'll notice that one of these have a little star next to their photo. That star indicates that that person is currently a facilitator in this canvas. There might be more than one, but it's always indicated by a little star next to their photo. Now, how do I know if I'm a facilitator? It's really easy to spot, because here at the top bar it says facilitator, but then also you have all the facilitator features and functionality available to you. If you're not a facilitator, that would be completely blank. Now, the third step that I want to go through quickly is, how do I grant someone else facilitator superpowers? You might wonder, why do I want to do that? We always recommend that you have someone, a buddy in a session, someone who has co-facilitation rights with you, because you never know if something goes wrong and maybe you need to log out quickly, you need to fix something, or maybe you have an internet connection problem. That means that your co-facilitator has all the superpowers, can run a voting session, can end a voting session, and perhaps set the timer if needed. Now, to grant someone facilitation superpowers is just as easy. So here at the top, just next to the share button over here, you'll notice that there's a little icon here that indicates the members in the session. Now, once you click on that, I'm going to open that up. You'll see that there's 2 active people in the canvas. One is indeed my old account that is active for the demo purposes, but then I also have my colleague Theo. The other thing that I want to quickly point out as we talk about facilitating superpowers is that, remember, to grant someone facilitation superpowers, they need to be a member in the canvas. This is usually someone who carries the same email address as you in an enterprise environment, but just check with your IT administrator if you're unable to grant someone facilitation superpowers. Now, to do the superpower granting, it's relatively easy. You just click on this person's name, their photo will pop up, and then you'll see what rights that person has. So Theo, one of my colleagues who's currently not online, can actually come into this canvas and edit at will. I can also change and say she can only view, which means she can do nothing, just view the content on the canvas. But what I want to do in this case is I want to grant her facilitation superpowers. Once I click on there, you'll notice something happening. First is that status now changed, as she can facilitate, and then also she now carries this little star next to her photo. So when Theo logs into the canvas, you'll immediately see her photo and recognize the fact that she's a facilitator by the little star. Of course, you can go back and then take away the facilitation status later on if you wanted to. However, I'm going to leave that as is for now. Okay, so you want to customize the canvas a little bit. Perhaps you've just put a template together and you need a smidge more space. The easiest way to do that without too much hassle is just to look at the edge of the canvas here. Remember, as a facilitator, you just click on the edge and you'll see a little double-sided arrow appear. And you can quickly drag that out if you want to and scale it as much as you want. And you can also scale it back. Of course, you don't have to stick with just making things larger. And then, of course, you can do it at the top, on the right-hand side, at the bottom. That's really a quick and easy way to just scale a canvas up and down. However, maybe you want to be a bit more precise, or you need to look at some custom sizings. So here at the top where you find the canvas name, you go to the right-hand side there. There's a little drop-down arrow. You click on that, and it's going to open up a bunch of features. Click on Mural Settings, and then you have a whole drop-down or pop-up flyout here for you. The first thing that I'll point out here is you can also quickly and easily change the mural name. And then what you're looking for is the canvas color, so the background color of the actual canvas. Here is a few options that you can select from. And then finally, if you want to resize the mural, you can actually go and select a few of the custom sizes that we have available here. You can also change the units. Perhaps you want to work in meters and see how big the canvas is if you physically stand in front of it. And you'll see that it also updates the mural, the size, indication down here. You can also then add custom sizes into these boxes to size the canvas. Quick and easy way to just make the canvas the size that you want it to be. And then finally, a few other elements that you can customize also is that if you have the ability to invite visitors into the canvas, you can select either animals, music instruments, or travel icons. So when they come in as anonymous folks, they have a little icon as a photo. And then also you can set the sounds that the system actually plays. Once you've set those, you can click Save, and then your canvas should resize. There's just a quick way to add some custom elements or customization to the actual canvas. So as a facilitator, sometimes you want to grab people's attention. You want to point something else. And some of our users actually use the canvas to also do presentations. No need to drag people into other applications. Just use the canvas. But you need something extra just to draw their attention. And in this point, I just want to quickly show you here, we have a little laser pointer. So if you click on that and you go to the canvas, let me just do that again. You'll see that you now have the ability to say, hey, I'm talking about this little bit over here. Of course, if you want to switch it off, you go over there and you can switch it off and then it's gone again. However, that's for the boring people. You're much cooler than that. If you hit the H on the keyboard, it gives you a laser pointer on the go. You don't have to go click any icons. So whenever you're having a little presentation, you're explaining something, you want to quickly just underline something or highlight something, just hit H on the keyboard and then do what you need to do. And once you let go of that key, you are now back into normal mode, which is much easier than hitting the actual navigation element. So laser pointer, love it. Super lock, the one feature that any facilitator worth their salt will forget about at least once. Maybe I can save you some of the embarrassment. Here's the use case. Now imagine you've set out this whole complex template, perhaps a little bit more complex than the template I have here. I just grabbed one of the frameworks from the library and I've placed it here on this canvas. Now let's say someone comes in and they start working on it, adding content, adding details, misplaces a sticky note, wants to move it, grabs the wrong place and then moves the whole canvas away. This has happened to a lot of us in large sessions where people add content and then all of a sudden the content that you want to have stay in place just moves off. This is where the feature of super locking or locking something in place comes in really handy. Now the way that you lock something down is really easy. You select the content that you want to lock, grab it. I'm just going to grab everything that's in the viewport. you right click on that element or what element you want to lock, go down, and you'll see you have a feature, lock. You can lock so that any member can unlock. So this is a handy feature. So if you want to lock something down and still make it available so someone else can come in that is a non-facilitator to unlock it, you can do that. But then you can also lock something down that only facilitators can unlock. And to be honest, I usually use this one most of the time. So you've now locked everything down. And indeed, if I go and I want to go and grab and drag this, nothing can move because I've indeed locked everything down. However, I also want to point something out. Now I have tried to select this area, nothing works. A nice tip here, you'll see that Mural actually reminds you, if you want to unlock something or select it in your facilitator, there's a way that you can do that. I'm going to demonstrate that now. So if I hit Shift and Command, if you're in Windows, it might be different, Shift and Control, and I drag and select, you'll see that I am now able to actually select something. It becomes selectable. I've selected everything and I'm going to make it smaller. Just select the little sticky notes and you'll see that there's little locks next to the elements here. So I want to quickly point out that there's a little lock. So if I click on that, what will happen, I get a little drop down and says unlock selection. So I can specifically only unlock the elements that I've now selected. So if I'm show you this, these are now again movable. I have unlocked them. Remember, it's only facilitators that can do this unless you've set it to be able to be unlocked by anybody. Once again, I just want to quickly show you how I've done that. So if I right click on the element, a little contextual menu will pop out. I have the lock feature over here, and then I have the ability to either lock it for any member to unlock or only facilitators can unlock. And if I activate that, that element becomes locked and I cannot move it. However, Mural will give you a little pointer. If you try and unlock it, it sits over here as a facilitator. And if you want to just select that little element, and this can be handy when you have a more complex template than this, Shift, Command, or Shift and Control, you select that area, you right click on that element, and then you'll have either unlock or unlock all. Just a quick point on unlock all. If you hit unlock all, it'll give you a warning because it'll say it'll unlock all the elements. If you say unlock all, it will indeed unlock everything that is currently locked on your template. That's not something that you want to do all the time, so be careful that you don't unlock something that you don't want to have unlocked. However, I'm going to do that again, unlock, and I'm just going to say unlock that item, and then you'll see that I'm now able to move this around. So definitely a super handy feature to go and explore, especially when you start laying out your own templates and canvases for your work session. So that is the super lock feature on the Facilitation Super Power side. Let's talk about the outline, a great way to add structure to your sessions and to your templates and to your canvases. It is a feature that will help you navigate, but then also kind of help you structure your thoughts. I use it all the time. So let me quickly show you where the outline element is. If you go to the top right corner, you'll see that you have the outline icon right here. I'm going to click on that and you'll see that the little menu bar will slide in. Now, what I've done before the session, I actually added a piece of content to the outline already. It's a secret sticky note and it's hidden somewhere on the canvas. Now, at the basic, what the outline does, it actually adds a link or a reference point to the list. And once you click on that reference point, it'll take you straight across to where that element sits on the canvas. Now, in this case, or in most cases, you can add any pieces of content, areas, icons, images, pieces of text, and add that reference point to the outline like I've done with the secret sticky note. You'll also notice here at the top that I indeed added a little description. And then what I can do if I wanted to, if I click on that little eyeball there, I can show and hide that sticky note. This is a really interesting feature because if you have canvases or elements on a template or on a canvas that you prepared for a session, perhaps there's elements in your session that you want to hide for later in the session, or maybe you want to hide one of your brainstorming or ideation sessions in your back pocket for just in case. You can just click on that little eye there and it'll hide it away until you decide to reveal it again. Now let me quickly go back and show you how to add content to the outline, and then I'm going to play around a little bit and demonstrate how you can modify some of the elements. Now, if you've been in any of the sessions with me, you know that I always make a few hamster jokes, and I'm going to do a hamster joke just now by finding a hamster icon. If I can spell hamster, of course. and my favorite hamster always pops up right when I need it. And let's say I want to add this hamster to the outline, or at least a reference point. What I want to do is I want to right click on this item, and then I'm going to scroll all the way down, and you'll see that there's an option there to actually add something to the outline. I'm going to click on that, and you'll see that there's now a new item at the top right in the outline. Because this is just a normal piece of content, I now have the ability to actually give it a title. I'm just going to call it hamster, just to keep things clear. And then I'll show you, if you click on these little dots here, I have the ability to rename it again if I wanted to. I can add instructions. So as you've seen in the sticky note, I can add a lot of details, tell the life story of the hamster if I wanted to. But this is handy if you want to add instructions to a piece of content or to that area of the canvas for your users. And then if I go back, you also have the ability to link to something. It's a little bit more advanced. Remember what I said when we started this video, is that this is a link to a piece of content or an area on the canvas. Now remember, if I click here, just keep note that if I copy and paste this link somewhere, this is just another way to actually link to this hamster. So if I take this hyperlink, put it on another canvas or put it in some other area of the canvas here, and I click on that link, it's going to take me to where the hamster is. So it's an interesting way of using it. You can also use it as a facilitator to build quite elaborate templates if you want to. And then also you have the ability to make the hamster more important, and you can move things around. And then finally, also if you wanted, you can go and then remove Mr. Hamster from your outline. The other element that I want to quickly show you that is important or kind of interesting, in general, when I add content to the outline, I usually use areas. In this case, I've just colored this area so it's more visible for you. The way you add an area is similar. You just select the area, right click, and then you'll have add to outline somewhere here on your list. There it is. Add it to the area, and what you'll see is that what's really cool about this is that it actually grabs the title from the area that you can see on the area here, and it pre-populates the title in your outline, so it saves you a lot of time. So now you have that area added. I'm going to add another area, so just to show you again, I'm going to right click on the area, then have add to outline, and there you have the title pre-populated. Of course you can go back and change it. It's not going to change anything. But then also, just to show you that all this works, is that you can go and change the content around. So if I want to link to cluster 2, it'll take me right there. I can go up to cluster 1, take me there. Areas also get hidden. So if any content in there, if I click the eye, it'll hide everything in that area. So it's a really interesting way to hide content from your users until you as a facilitator want to reveal it again. So there you have it. The outline feature. Super handy. Also very handy when you run presentations. A lot of people present things in Mural. So to navigate through your presentation, the outline will do the job for you. Let's talk about the custom toolbar. So sometimes you want to keep things very simple. In fact, I've been in a session a couple of weeks ago where someone asked us to do some ideation, and they forced us to only use images. Now there's always someone, and that's usually me, who cheats, adds sticky notes, adds text, and you want to force someone to actually use a specific feature in Mural and not dip into the other elements. This is where the custom toolbar comes in really handy. So you find the custom toolbar here at the top, and you'll see a little tick mark over there. And once you click on that, it'll open up a whole bunch of sets of features or elements here for you. I just want to zoom in there and quickly show you. So once you activate this, I'm going to zoom out again. You'll see that there's all kinds of interesting things starting to happen here on the side here with your navigation bar. Please note that the custom toolbar directly affects what happens here on this left-hand navigation bar, and it affects how your folks in the session experience the navigation bar. So for example, let's say I want to run a ideation session like I mentioned, and I only want to give folks access to the images and perhaps to the icons. If I switch that on, what you'll see here is that I now have a little block around the icons and around the images. Now what I can also do is I can quickly take a preview, because it's important now as a facilitator, I can still see everything, but what is it that the other participants, the non-facilitators in the session, what is it that they see? So if I click on this see preview, I'm going to do that right now. And what happens is that this is what all the participants in your session will see. This is real time, so this you can update this as you go along. So let's say you do your ideation session, you activate the custom toolbar. This is what your participants will see. I'm just going to quickly exit preview. Remember, I'm still currently in preview mode, so I can see this. So I'm going to exit the preview, and now I'm back here in the custom toolbar. Now, for all intents and purposes, I can still see all the elements, but now you can see there's a light block around the icons and in the image icon over here. So this is currently active. You can see it by the blue here, and people will only be able to see the menu bar as follows. I'm clicking again, so I show you this is what the participants in the canvas can currently see. They have access to nothing else except for icons and images, and you can use this bar to switch on as many things as you want. The reason I'm repeating this is that what's happened to me before is that I've activated the custom toolbar, and because I could see all the elements here, I kind of forgot that people have only access to a limited feature set. So remember, when you activate that, you can see it here at the top. It's indeed showing you that it's active, and the way that you switch it off, as you click over there, and now you'll notice that everything is now accessible again for everybody. There is no indication of the custom toolbar being active. So a very handy feature if you want to play around a little bit with the experience in the canvas, switch off some of the things you don't need, and kind of challenge folks to use certain features within the Mural canvas for that session. But don't forget to switch it back on again. Time waits for no facilitator. Probably the feature we use the most at Mural, especially when people are in meetings with me, because I tend to blah blah. How do I keep time? So at the top here, we have this Facilitator Super Powers. Indeed, there you have the little timer feature. I'm just going to go out here and then show you. If you open that up, you can set the time. It's pretty straightforward here. You can set the amount of time you want the timer to run. I've set 10 minutes in this instance. Then at the end of the timer, so when it's run out, because it counts down, it'll play a little sound for you. So you can select you either want the aeroplane or cello or a cuckoo sound. It's up to you. You can also listen to what the sound sounds like before it actually plays. You can also mute the sound, because in some instances what folks do, we do it all the time, is that you want to time box your presentation or your workshop, and you don't want it to interrupt the thinking or the participation of folks in the session. You can then mute that sound and just use the visual indicator that I'm going to demonstrate now. So when I set my time, set the sound that I wanted to play when it runs out, and then I start the timer. Now what will happen at the top is you'll see that it changes color and it's indeed activated. The little clock will also show you, it's a little visual indicator of how much time you have left, but then also you have clear countdown happening here. Now, maybe you want to change the time. Maybe you want to stop the timer. You can click on that area again, and the contextual menu will open up, and you have now a few additional features. You can see the timer counting down. Also, keep in mind that if you leave the canvas, the timer will continue running. So if you run into trouble, maybe you want to do a quick refresh, or you want someone else to take over. A facilitator, though, remember, only a facilitator can actually activate these and deactivate these features. You can have someone else come in. Now you'll see that you can still change the time, you can still mute it. And then here's a handy little feature that I've used a couple of times. So from time to time you have someone, or there's maybe a time box area where people are having a conversation, and then it gets really deep and really interesting, and you don't want people to get interrupted by the timer. As a facilitator, you can quickly sneak in, maybe add an extra minute. You'll see it just jump by a minute. Maybe it's going really intense, or maybe you're running a little bit behind time, or you've won time on another session. You can just add more time here if you want to. Of course, you can also go back and pause the timer. Let's say it's time for lunch or something like that. You can pause the timer. You can then go back in and then start the timer again. Or indeed, you can go back, pretty straightforward, and then stop the timer. And it'll indicate to you that the time's up when the timer is off. And as easy as that. Remember, you can use it for certain time box sessions. You can use it to measure yourself. And there's all kinds of interesting things that people use the timer for. In fact, the timer is also used in combination with, let's say, the voting session and some of the other facilitation superpowers. So don't forget to set the time. The trusty old dot vote. I don't know if you remember how we used to walk around in workshops with little round stickers, and then used to indicate our votes by sticking these little round dots on the sticky notes on walls. Now you can do this right here in Mural, much easier and a little bit easier to audit. Now, how do you set up a voting session? And perhaps the first thing I need to do is point out where the voting feature sits within the Mural navigation bar. So if you go up to the facilitation tools at the top here, you'll see that you have your dot voting element right here, and you can start your voting session. What I have done though is I prepared a little area, because the other thing that you need to keep in mind, and this is the most important thing to keep in mind as you set up a voting session within Mural, is that imagine yourself to be in a real world workshop space and you're giving someone a sticky little round dot and you tell them to go vote. If you don't give them instructions or guide them, they can basically vote in anything, on the biscuits, the coffee cups, on the whiteboards, and perhaps a few will land on the ideas or the context that you want folks to vote on. So the most important part, or the thing that you need to focus on the most when you set up a voting session, is actually defining the area that you want people to vote on. As mentioned in some of the other videos, that these areas can become quite large. Now, what I've done here, just to give you an example, is I prepared a little area with a few different elements on it to show you how I set up a voting session. Now, you can vote on most elements within a canvas. In this example, I really want folks to actually go in and just vote on the 3 ideas that I've laid out here. Now, how do I set up the voting session? First thing is I go over to dot voting and then say start a new session. Click to open that up, and then a little drop down opens up with a whole bunch of kind of features and data and metadata that I can add. First, what you want to do is perhaps you want to add a name for your voting, because you can go back and review some of the votes that happened in the past within the session. So I'm going to go voting round 1. Then you can also assign the amount of votes you want a person to have. So if you have a kind of design sprint background, or maybe design thinking, sometimes what happens is you want to give people multiple votes because they want to maybe prioritize certain things, have the ability to vote multiple times for something, depending on your use case, of course. Then the next area down here is that who do you want, or who can end a voting session. So when you set up a voting session as a facilitator, for the most part with this ticked, you as a facilitator will set up the vote. Remember, when the system goes into a voting round, a user can't do anything else. But you can also set up a session where any member can end the voting session. However, for the most part, in most use cases, you would want the facilitator to have the ability to end the voting session. Something else I need to point out here in the functional side is that you can start a voting session and actually leave the canvas. You can leave a voting session open for a couple of days if you want to. It's only once the facilitator comes back and then ends the voting session that the voting session will stop. Unless, of course, you select any member can stop the voting session. Now, the next thing is where I kind of started talking about is where and what do people vote on. So the first level is to decide on which elements do you want a sticky dot vote to land. So you have a whole list of different components that are available to you in Mural, and you can select on which of these elements and which elements don't you want people to vote. What I usually do is I just go and clear the selection, and then I select the element. So I try and peer. I can't really see the canvas at the moment, but if I add sticky notes to the list, you'll see that everything grays out, and then I have sticky notes here. All the sticky notes are visible. It's kind of a visual indicator telling you that people can now vote on that element. Just to give you an example that this really works, I'm going to activate icons as well. So this means in this case, people can put their votes on my little hamster and other hamsters, or on the 3 ideas, which I don't want to do now. The other element that is really interesting that I use a lot is when you create clusters. So let's say you create a group of ideas and you want people to only vote on the groups, not the individual ideas. This is where you would use areas, and you can deactivate the sticky notes and then say, I only want people to vote on the areas. And you'll see that the area there at the back and the other area is now active, and people can vote on only the areas. So cluster 1 or cluster or idea group 2 that you want them to vote on, you can have multiple of these areas, of course, available. In this example, I'm just going to make sticky notes votable again, and you'll see it comes back into focus. Now, the other thing that you need to keep mind of is the last feature or parameter here is where to vote. Now, remember, I've now zoomed into this area on the canvas Of course, there might be more sticky notes, there might be more things on the canvas, your templates might be more complex. So if I just start the vote now, people can vote in any other sticky notes. What I want to do is I want to only select the vote to happen in a selected area. So therefore you have the two options. You can vote on the entire canvas, maybe all the ideas and concepts are the canvas, or maybe there's a lot of other things there. Then you want to go and actually do a selected area. I'm going to do the selected area, click on that, and then click next. Now you're nearly ready to start the vote. You have to, however, come in and define the area you want the vote to happen in. You have this blue bounding box that you can see here. You grab the area, you can now scale it up and down, and it gives you a bit of an instruction here of what you need to do. And I only want people to be able to vote on the stickies. Now this example is very simple. I don't actually have to use the area because I've only selected the sticky notes. However, outside this frame there might be more sticky notes you don't know. I want people to vote on those 3 ideas. Now once you're ready, you'll see that there's indication. You have 5 votes per person, and I really want to start the vote. You click the start button over here, and the system will think about it a little bit. Sometimes take a couple of seconds just to activate. I'm going to start the vote right now. That was fast. So now what will happen is you'll get this little pop-up here, and once you've clicked that as a user, other people has also received this pop-up. You go into begin the vote. Zooms into the area you want to vote, and now I can add a vote by simply just clicking on the idea that I think is the best. You'll see a little indication pop up showing that I've actually voted on this element twice. For example, I might have another user in another screen actually adding more content. I have an example here. So for example, I'm adding some extra votes here by another user, which you can't see. You can only see your own votes. Now, the thing is that might happen that you voted on the wrong element or you've changed your mind. So if you shift click, it'll take votes away from this sticky note. The other way to do that is I'm just going to add a vote. If you right click, you can remove or add a vote from the sticky note. And I just want to vote a couple of extra votes over here. The other thing that I want to point out that is important as a facilitator is the functionality that you have here at the top bar. So you can end the voting session, and you can also kind of keep track of what's happening with the votes. So for example, if I click on this drop down, you'll see that there's currently 2 users voting. So one is me, that's me, and then my clone sitting in another window also voting. So if I go in and I do a few votes here on the side, you'll see that there's actually votes counting down. And it's a great way to actually just keep track of how people are voting, because once everybody has voted, you can then end the voting session or encourage people to rethink. But then you can always come back in and see, if people are active or not actively voting. Just encourage them through the voting. So to end the voting session is very easy. You just go over here to the end voting session, click on that, and then it'll give you a results page. Now here you can see that idea 2 has received most of the votes, 6 votes. And then as I scroll down, I can see that idea 1 and 3 has received 2 votes. And once you've done reviewing this result, and the results also pop up on the side for each of the participants, they can also view the results. And once you've discussed that, you can close that down and get rid of it. Now, as a facilitator, something that you can see though is the fact that and user, you can see that the voting sessions remain here. You can also get rid of it if you want more space. I'm just doing that as a demonstration, and now you're back to where you were. Now, let's say I want to go back and actually review that vote again. Just go back to the voting session over here. You can see the results page of a vote, and there you have it. All of your voting sessions will be listed down here, and you can go and review the votes that has happened before. It's nicely archived. The other thing that you can also do is you can also delete a voting session, and you can also show the votes. And what happens with the show the votes is that you actually have now in the normal canvas all these little indicators here highlighted. What's nice about this indicator here is that it sizes up depending on how many votes it receives. So idea 2 in this example has received the most votes, and you'll see the little circle that indicates the votes are kind of larger than the other ones. You can deactivate that by saying hiding votes, and then finally you can also go and then delete the voting session and just get a warning there that you'll be deleting that permanently. but for now, I'll just keep that voting session going. So that is the voting feature. Super handy to kind of just test people's kind of feeling. You can also run it with your timer, of course, if you want to time box the voting session. And by all means, you can also use the voting session just to do a quick sense check in the session. You don't have to have all these formal voting elements going. It's really a feature there to help you as a facilitator gauge where people are going, what direction they're going. And then, of course, at the final round, you can also go and use it to make the final decision. So really interesting little feature, probably the one that people use the most when they start getting into the facilitation superpowers. Okay, let's talk about summoning. So for everybody, facilitators and non-facilitators, they have the ability to follow other people. Now, as a good rule of thumb is when you join a canvas or a template or a work session where people are using Mural and you feel a little bit lost, seek out the facilitator. As I mentioned, you see them over here at the bottom, or perhaps you know of another user or a friend that's in the canvas and they know exactly what they're doing. And the easy thing to do is just go in, click on follow. So when you hover over, you'll see it pops up there and you can actually follow what Vanner is doing. Right, so I'm going to do that, and I'm going to go exactly to where vendor number 2 is in the canvas, and I can see he's messing around over here, looking at some of the voting results from one of the sessions, and then going on his way. And that doesn't bother Vanner, and it doesn't bother me. However, as a facilitator, what happens from time to time is that you want to actually bring people to a specific space within a template, either to give instructions, or to run a session, or to run a specific exercise. And you need folks to join you. As a facilitator, you have the added benefit of actually summoning people to a specific area within the canvas. I'm going to demonstrate how you do that. Now, where the summon feature lives is if you go down here and you click, you'll see that I have now hovered over my icon here as a facilitator. And then what happens is that when I go up, I have the ability to summon someone. So I'm going to do that, click on summon, and what happens is that I now have a visual indicator here at the top of the screen. So just to keep in mind, it's a bit confusing that I have another user in the canvas under another account under my name, and that person is now following me. This will give you an indication here of how many people are now actually following you within the canvas as a facilitator. You have another feature here, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then the next thing you can do is you can actually release them. In this state, someone can actually release themselves from your summoning and then go off and do their own thing. In general, we use this the most of the time because we don't want to be too forceful in the way we summon folks around in a template. However, there is times that you want to actually have specific focus. Let's say you're presenting someone, or you want to really highlight something or give instruction. This is where this element comes in. You have an extra link here that says take control, and that does exactly what it says. So when I say, and I click on this, I take control of what the other users are seeing. They are seeing exactly what I'm seeing. So if I move the canvas around and I'm doing things, they are seeing exactly what I'm seeing. The other benefit of this mode is that the user can't add anything. They have to look at and listen to what I'm saying. The other thing that I will point out though is don't forget that once you've done that, you actually then also release them. So you then, once you click on that, it means that the person or the users that you have summoned now has the ability to control and do things again and do whatever they need to do as per your instruction. So that is summon feature. Use carefully, but use with intention could be really handy. Let's talk about private mode. Before I talk about private mode, let me quickly just show you a function that you might not know or be aware of. So when you add a piece of content to the Mural canvas and templates and sessions, there's actually a way that you can determine who's added this piece of content. So for example, if I go to this sticky note over here, I click on it, and then I right click on it, I go up to show info, click on that, I have the ability to see who's actually added this piece of content. Of course, that's me. I'm the only one active in this canvas, but you can always go back and then determine who's added this piece of content. It's very handy when you work asynchronously, for example, and you want to find out what someone meant by something they've posted, or, if you want to elaborate on something, great way to just keep the conversation going in an easy way. However, there's certain times that you don't want someone to know that who's added that piece of content. It might be in a session where you're doing a retrospective, where things want to remain private or confidential. You want to share your ideas with the team, but you might feel a bit uncomfortable to do that publicly. That is one of the reasons private mode is there. The other reason we use private mode a lot is that you want to avoid groupthink. So you've seen this in real world sessions and workshops where people get driven or kind of guided by what the senior manager says, or perhaps idea comes up and everybody thinks it's great because they're buying into the idea or the seniority of that person. And that's why we want to do like individual brainstorming sessions, for example, when it comes to ideation. There is times that you want to create a little bit of a private space within the canvas, and that's also one of the benefits of using private mode. Now, how do you activate private mode as a facilitator? First thing you want to do is I want to point out private mode sits here at the top menu bar. You'll see the little spy glasses over there. And what you want to do when you want to activate a private mode session is you just click on that. And what you'll be presented with is a few settings that you can set up. Now, by default, you have this kind of anti-groupthink mode switched on. I'm just going to zoom in there and show you that, you want to run a private mode session. You want to start it over here, but you want to be able to show authors when the private mode ends. So any content that's added when this is ticked, I can still go and right click on that pieces of content and then find out who's added that content afterwards. So very handy if you're running ideation, you want to get more detail. But the other mode that I want to highlight here is this feature or function over here, or option over here, is that no, I want all the authors that add content during the private mode to remain anonymous. That is for when you want to do coaching sessions, perhaps retrospectives with a little bit more of a private or a kind of confidential nature. Any content that's then added within the private mode session will remain anonymous. And let me demonstrate that, because the functionality for both is kind of the same. It's just you'll not be able to track who's added pieces of content. Now, once you've set that up, decided what context you want to run, all you have to do is hit the start button, and the system might think about it a little bit. So while it cracks away, you prepare yourself. The system is now, or the canvas is ready to go into private mode. Everybody gets this message, all the participants and facilitators, and you can then acknowledge that you are now indeed going into private mode. Now it's activated. As the facilitator, you'll see that the private mode is activated. You can see at the top bar here that private mode is indeed activated, and you as a facilitator can end private mode when you feel like it. I also want to quickly go on my second screen here and just show you what it looks like when someone adds content in private mode. So here's my second user. He's going to come in, or she's going to come in. There's also an indicator on the top bar. Everybody can see this top bar menu here that they are indeed in private mode. I'm going to go in, grab a sticky note, and then add content. What you'll see on this screen here, I'm just going to zoom in there, is that you'll see that there's indeed a little piece of content that comes in. You cannot see what that person's typing, what they're writing. So any content that's added during private mode will remain invisible until you end private mode. So I'm just going to add a little note. And then end that. Now back to my screen. So I'm happy with what's happened, and then I now want to go and reveal the content and end private mode. This is actually very exciting when you do a little ideation session and you're ready to reveal to everybody what just happened. So I'm going to click on the end private mode button over here, and then get this confirmation that I indeed want to end private mode. Make double sure you want to do that, and then end the private mode. This will then give an indication to all the users that the system is now going back into its non-anonymous state. There you have it. All the users has now received this indication, and you can see that I indeed have now revealed the message that the other users added. However, I want to prove to you, if I click on that, right click, go on the show info, you'll see that this is now indicating that this was added in private mode, and it'll remain anonymous, and there's no way that I can figure out who's added this message. So there you have it. Private mode, super handy to combat groupthink and set up some really interesting ideation sessions. And perhaps if you want to allow your collaborators within your session to add content and remain anonymous within a session. So how do you show a little bit of appreciation or acknowledgement to your collaborators within the session? Of course, if you go down to the screen, to the bottom of the screen here where you see the active collaborators, you'll notice that you do have the ability to add reactions. So if you hover over this, you have the ability to celebrate a little bit, maybe show a little bit of love, and also acknowledgement of what folks are doing within the session. And this is available, that reactions is available to all the participants, not only facilitators. However, for facilitators, we do have a little bit of an added feature. So if you open that up, you'll see that there is the celebration feature available to facilitators. And I wanted to zoom out just to show you what that looks like. So we usually use this sparingly, but it's just a great way to show people a little bit of extra love and appreciation as you go through a session at the end, and it just drops the confetti. And perhaps from time to time, we have been accused of using it a little bit too much. There you have it. 11 little video clips just taking you through some of the facilitation superpowers within Mural. The thing to keep in mind is that these features from a technical perspective isn't that complex. We try to make them as user-friendly as possible. What I would encourage you to do though, before you jump into a complex session, give it a test run, give it a try. Try around some of your sessions. It's good practice in any case to do that, and try around some of the usage of this functionality. They are super intuitive, easy to use, but you want to get familiar with them and comfortable with them as you go into your systems. Because remember, your focus is really on driving and oiling that collaboration. That's what you want to focus on. So have a look at these features again. Make sure you get to know them, and then also don't forget to dip into that canvas where I've actually chaptered out all the little video clips for you, so you don't have to watch the full video again. And remember, I'm available. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And yeah, thanks for watching.